you want to play in the high mission, high money space. And that's what it felt like when we saw you guys. Like Preservan had that high money, high mission sweet spot that I think really resonated with both of us, but in particular, Emily. That's what got Emily excited.
Welcome to Chart New Territories with Preservan, and I am super excited today to introduce to you some of our brand new franchise owners, Casey and Emily Long, opening up Preservan Charleston. They just finished their training. They're back at home, and they are already off to a strong start. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about their process of how they went from their corporate careers to being local business owners, what helped them make that decision, what it was like working with a franchise consultant, and what their goals are as small business owners. We're going to dive into all of that and even more, so I encourage you to listen to the whole video and enjoy meeting Casey and Emily Long. So I am super excited to be here this morning with Casey and Emily Long, the brand new owners of Preservan Charleston. Casey and Emily, welcome.
Thanks, Ty.
Thanks.
How are we doing this morning?
Good, busy. Already off and running.
Already off and running. Well, you're going to jump the gun on me. We're going to get there. But before we talk about everything that's going on now as you guys are getting open and getting started, I want to circle all the way back and just get started to talk about what were you doing before Preservan? And Casey, I'll let you kick us off. What were you doing before getting this thing started?
Yeah, so I've been working in tech for a long time. I was in the military. I did tech in the military, and then I've been working in tech in civilian life since 2014. And so I work in consulting, basically. So when companies need to get enterprise software implemented at their business and customized for their business, I work at companies that do that. And I was at a transition point that summer that we met, late summer, early fall, and engaged with a franchise broker, Gilbert, friend of Preservan. Now I would say it's fair to say.
Yeah.
And the short version is he teed you guys up and we met and it kind of snowballed from there. But to be honest with you, Ty, it was very, I don't know what the word would be, but like I went into it with very little expectations other than just I found myself in this transition point where like I had left a job without another job in hand, been doing it a long time, having that vague sense that, needed to change, something different, something a little more tangible is the best word I can come up with, like craving something a little less like rooted to a laptop and,
right.
and commercial software. And so engaged with Gilbert with very little expectation, I should say. And that's kind of how we got it in your inbox.
Yeah, that's that exactly. So doing, and by the way, you said you were military prior. What branch of the military?
I was a Marine. I was a Marine officer. So I went to college on an ROTC scholarship, went to officer candidate school, got commissioned, and I was what the Marine Corps refers to as communications, which is, in the civilian world, it's just called IT. So I led units that set up tactical communications networks. What we used to say is voice, video, and data.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, it's just all data. But yeah, that was my thing.
And then, like you said, you just kind of took that skill that you acquired there in the military, in the service, and then brought that into the civilian world and continued doing that. Emily, So that's Casey. What have you been doing prior to all of this?
So kind of my main career, corporate career, I spent a little over a decade doing consulting, essentially. So data financial analyst for a consulting firm that works mainly with government agencies and some private companies as well. And so I supported the Navy in those roles that I was in. And similar to Casey, it was particularly towards the end post-COVID, during COVID and post-COVID, it was very just in the laptop, work from home. Prior to that, when I had been in person, there was a little bit more engagement, but had kind of been feeling that disconnect. And then we had our two children in that time period. And so after our second child was born, both kind of stepped back entirely from my corporate role, but started a flower farm with a friend of mine at the same.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I thought I was going to have more time with the second child to begin that endeavor, but agriculture, sustainable agriculture, and kind of community involvement in that regard had always been a passion of mine. And so that sort of at that time period where it led me. And after about 2.5 to 3 years of doing that, and finally making the realization that, in fact, I wasn't gaining time to be able to do
Right.
that with two small children at
Yeah.
home. I stepped back from that, and we started thinking a little bit more long term about what my eventual return to work would in fact look like, and what I was going to be interested in doing. And I kind of knew from the jump that it was going to have to be something more community facing, that's kind of where I get more of my charge, is that
Yeah.
interpersonal connection, particularly out in the world, not necessarily just within the confines of an office space. So that was already a dimension of work that I was looking towards when then all of the kind of franchising discussions popped up. We learned about Preservan and, the sustainability aspect
Yeah.
and the neighbor service to your neighbors component of it just really coalesced and set off a bunch of light bulbs for me.
Yeah. So was there a single moment that you can recall that you were, Casey or Emily, either one of you can answer this, where, because it sounds like maybe Casey, you were the driver of starting something new. Was there a moment or a time where you're like, this is it. We're going to do something else. Like, what was that?
Yeah, well, you're right. So the journey definitely had like a handoff point because largely as a function of just not knowing what we didn't know about a franchising business and what our needs would be. And then coupled with Emily's excitement when she learned about you guys. So the kind of the way it transpired was I was driving it at first. So I engaged with Gilbert, and then I sort of told Emily, like, I'm thinking seriously about this. I'd like you to like ride along with this on this process, because if I do something, this is going to be a family affair. The risk will be incurred by the family, not just me. And so I just want you to kind of like know what I'm up to. So she kind of, came along, and when we were going through the process, the brokerage process, it was all very sort of just general. You know what I mean? We got presented typical franchising opportunities, right? Like there was a painter in our area that we could take over a painting business. And there was some interesting like cleaning, commercial and residential, that from a financials point of view and opportunity view. And then Gilbert presented you guys, and I mean, we both lit up, and in particular, Emily, I saw her eyebrows raise, and she was like, "Whoa, this is so cool!" And then you could just feel the center of gravity shift a little bit. Where
Yeah.
like, within like a couple conversations, we were
Yeah.
like, "No, we're both doing this
Yeah.
if it works out." You know what I mean? At that point, we
Right.
hadn't met you, but like the interest was mutual at that point, and not just this kind of abstract. We could own a business, and it could be financially rewarding and stuff like that. So, and then
Yeah.
you could talk about your experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think in particular, it was once we realized sort of for anything that we were going to be getting off the ground, the day to day operational needs, even if something is, pitched as semi passive, right?
Right.
The amount of just involvement you have to have in the beginning stages, coupled with the fact that he was going to need to maintain a full-time job in these initial years. My exact words might have been something like, if we're going to do this, I'm only doing it if we're going with Preservan. Like I have no desire to. I just didn't have a passion, as particularly in, you're having to sell your business, sell your product, even if you don't feel like you're doing traditional sales. And I'm like, what Preservan is doing is something that I just want to tell people, but like I'm just comfortable telling people,
Right.
talking about, and feeling like we're going to be in conversations with preservation enthusiasts and groups that I already follow and like to be a part of as a
Yeah.
hobbyist, and now like to get to have something to bring to the table. So yeah, I think it really was pretty shortly after that it was like, okay, if the only way, this feels like an opportunity we would be sad to walk away from, that
Right.
we would wonder what if we were concerned about the time commitment between the two of us and for our family, that to walk away from it would feel like a missed opportunity. And this is the only one that I want to have that
Yeah.
level of involvement with.
Yeah.
So that was clear pretty soon after
Yeah.
we started talking.
You know what comes
That's
to mind, Ty, is I I in a in a context of like nonprofit leadership, I heard this guy give a talk, and it was like a high level strategy talk. And he was talking about, in his particular case, he ran a Jewish community center, which they do like a million different things. And he was talking to other Jewish community center leaders, and he had this diagram, this quad chart. Like, so one axis was mission and one axis was money. And so he's like, you're going to have some things that are high mission and low money, low mission, or low money and high mission and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, you want to play in the high mission, high money space. Ideally, sometimes
yeah, right.
and that's what it felt like when we saw you guys. Like, so we saw some of the other opportunities, and like I'm an operations and strategy guy, and I could see like the sort of economic value proposition of some of these other brands. But Preservan had that high money, high mission sweet
Yeah.
spot that I think really resonated with both of us, but in particular Emily. That's what got Emily excited.
Yeah. That's really great. And you know, from the person doing some of the calls when we're getting introduced to candidates, you guys stood out really quickly. Like, all of our owners are amazing, but some of them just, they get it through the education. As we go through the process, they begin to get it, which is great. We're okay with that. But then some of them get it like really quickly. And that first call is, you don't feel like you're selling, you feel like you're just talking to somebody who, like, whether or not we do this thing or not, we believe in the same things you guys believe in.
Mhm.
And that was what that first call felt like with you guys. Before we move on, I do want to ask just one additional question. And Casey, you probably can speak more to this than Emily, because I know you kind of initiated it. But you talked a lot about working with Gilbert. Gilbert is a franchise broker that specializes in working with veterans. But what was that process like? And from your perspective, was it worth it to work with the broker, you know, to evaluate businesses and ultimately find Preservan?
It's a great question. I mean, the short answer, it was very much worth it, and it was a great experience. I haven't done this without a broker, so I don't have a big data set to work with, but Gilbert's fantastic, and I can't imagine going through the process any other way, because he just put us through a battery of tests and interviews and stuff like that, which, I don't know, depending on who you are, may sound annoying.
Yeah.
But it gave us the confidence that when we got to the end of his process, which I think takes, 4 weeks on average kind of thing, depending on how fast you move on the franchisee side of it. At the end of that 4 weeks, you just kind of have this level of confidence that what he's pitching you is based on some sort of analysis of who you are and what your preferences are and stuff like that. So there wasn't a single dud that he presented. He presented 6 brands, and for none of them where I was like, well, that was a complete waste of a pitch. Like, why did you even pick that up? All of them were like, oh, okay, like this one I like more than this one, but I can see how all these kind of fit. I think you and I we've had a couple of funny exchanges where we're talking about, like, he asked me, like, do you want to manage teenagers? And I was like, no. So, like, there wasn't any, like, he didn't present like, do you want to, buy a Burger King location or something, that kind of things.
Yeah. So that's really good. I think that, when you're looking at a business opportunity, you're looking at kind of making that next step from your corporate career into business ownership. There's so much out there, right? And I think there's a lot of value in having a guide, because you could have just talked to me and that'd have been great, but you could have just talked to somebody else and never heard about us or never heard about other opportunities. And a good franchise broker and consultant can help a person with that.
And I'll just share too, Ty, that his involvement did not stop at the point we met you. I was circling back to him numerous times during the process and just bouncing ideas off of him and stuff like that. So I think that's the other bit. Gilbert might be an outlier there. I wouldn't be surprised if he was, to be honest with you.
Yeah. But Gilbert's one of the good ones. Gilbert's one of the best. Absolutely, for sure. But I do think that the ones that are in similar organizations like Gilbert, they're kind of educated and taught these things. And so great people to work with. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about Preservan, right? So we've kind of teed this up. You guys have talked about what you like about it, but let's Let's just get like real practical. Emily, I'll let you go here. What does Preservan do?
It's wood rot repair and basically restoration of any wood element that you have on your home that has experienced some deterioration. So, be it interior, exterior, the two-part epoxy system that we use is a great medium for fixing whether, again, on the exterior of a home, you're looking at rot or some sort of like compromised situation. Maybe it's a squirrel that's been
Yeah.
scratching at your trim. That's one that I've seen. On the inside of your house, maybe it's your dog has scratched up this custom molding that you had that you can't go buy quite off the shelf. And the epoxy is just going to be a great to kind of do that spot repair
Yeah.
for you without having to rip off an entire piece of trim, try to get something custom milled, or wait for a handyman to be able to reinstall something for you and hope that your job isn't too small for them to take on. Because that's an issue I think a lot of people face, is that they have one small thing they need addressed. And in order, in some cases, for a contractor or a handyman, in order for it to be really worth their time, it needs to be a bigger job, or it gets, deprioritized.
Yeah.
And that's just that's our lane. That's where we can come in and do that quicker fix, condense the repair to the area that needs the repair and be in and out and have it, integrated into the original aesthetic with minimal disruption. In a lot of cases, no disruption. There's nothing that needs to be taken out, uninstalled and
Yeah.
reinstalled. We can, address the issue
So like
where.
do everything on site. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're definitely saying it's significantly more convenient. It's more likely that you can get it done when you need to get it done. What about, price versus, you're talking about repair versus replacement. How does that impact the price?
Yeah, so typically the price is going to be much lower to repair something than to replace it. And that's part of, as we were talking earlier, like I'm not a salesperson. I don't want to do sales. I want to consult. I want to educate. That my background is in consulting, and like you, I just like talking about helping someone understand what it is that we do. And so part of that process in the assessment is taking a closer look and saying, based on what it is that you need, we're perfect for this situation, but actually, for this over here where there's, a greater amount that's compromised, or, based on the complexity involved, I have a great person I'm going to refer you out to
Yeah.
that do a full restoration, right? So, like if someone wants their historic window that's been sealed shut for 50 years to now be operable, well, sash cords, weights, things like that,
Yeah.
that's just beyond what we are doing. I can help with the rot portion and getting it, pristine in that regard, but I have a great person I'm going to turn you over to for the rest of this. So that's something that we're always keeping in mind is, when is that price component? When does it maybe stop making sense for the neighbor
Mm-hmm.
to be utilizing the epoxy as the solution as opposed to going to a more traditional restoration,
Yeah.
or in some cases needing, an element replaced, in fact. So our cost should be lower. And when we're reaching that threshold where that's not necessarily the case, I want to have that conversation with the
Yeah.
neighbor and point
Yeah.
them in the best direction.
No, that's really good. And it's really, I love just that kind of focus on consulting. Casey, what were you going to add?
But I was just going to say, but in the main, it is more convenient and more affordable and more sustainable, like our core values say, right? So
Yeah.
Emily had a neighbor this week that she quoted, and she had a very confined, um, noticeable spot of rot on a windowsill in an old home, in a historic home. And we asked her the question. We said, "Did you get a replacement quote?" She said, "Yeah, my handyman said it's going to be like, whatever it was, $3,000 to rip this thing out." And Emily was like, "Well, here's a quote for $500 of wood rot
Yeah.
replacement." Don't quote me on those numbers, but I mean,
Right.
you get there, right? You know, so all that push and pull and that consultative stuff. But I mean, I think that in the center of the bullseye, like it is more convenient and it is more affordable.
Right. Right. So I think that a lot of people would be concerned though, if, okay, This all sounds well and good. You can get to it faster. You can obviously make it less expensive, but how long can that actually last, right? Like that sounds like people say it on the internet, like a cheap fix.
Hmm.
Casey, somebody tells you it sounds like a cheap fix. What's your feedback on that?
Yeah, well, I think in most cases, they usually are just conflating our product in particular, but also the level of our work with, like a Bondo repair,
Right.
basically. And that's just your average consumer just doesn't know about the products that we use because you don't get them at Home Depot, right? So the longer answer to that question is it has the more thorough answer to that question is it's guaranteed for 10 years, but more specifically, the products that we use are, sanctioned by the National Park Services and like all the people that think about preservation. And so this stuff is built to last and it's
Yeah.
not Bondo. That's like a big thing. Like we gotta get some stickers made, Ty, that just say not Bondo.
Not Bondo.
Yeah, with like a
That
X on it.
making a note.
So, so, because I think that's what they're thinking, right? Like, I mean, we saw a comment on social media the other day that was like, "Yep, termites are going to get behind this," or
Yeah.
whatever, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And you can just read the subtext is like they think it's Minwax wood filler or Bondo, and this stuff is really rock solid. We consolidate the wood. That's Emily talked about the two-part system. So part one is a consolidant, it's a fiber consolidant. So before we ever put any putty down, we heavily treat the area that we're going to apply the epoxy putty with the fiber consolidant, and that petrifies the wood and creates this tight, tight, tight chemical bond. So once the putty goes in, like this stuff isn't going anywhere. When you actually feel the repairs, it is rock solid. And so it's guaranteed for 10 years at a minimum. And it's a really fantastic, durable, long-term solution.
Yeah, man, that's great. And yeah, I love the idea. Not Bondo stickers. Those sound like something we put together.
We can put them
So
on our buckets of
put them
epoxy.
on our buckets of epoxy. That's right, not Bondo. So you guys are in Charleston, but Charleston it's a pretty big place, full of smaller communities. When you guys are, and you're now there in Charleston, and you're kind of in your soft launch phase, you're starting to serve your community. What are some of the neighborhoods and areas that you are most excited to like get started in now, and that you're looking forward to like being able to make an impact in?
Yeah, so I mean, we're getting a lot of traffic so far and interest from the downtown peninsula. So a lot of older homes,
Mhm.
quite old, that are have a lot of wood elements, wood trim, wood windows. That we have great preservation standards encompassing the peninsula, and so those wood windows can't just be ripped out and have vinyl or something like that thrown in there. They are meant to be maintained, and so we're certainly seeing a lot of interest from downtown neighbors. Um, the Mount Pleasant area that's kind of just off of downtown, that's got a lot of lovely homes there. Again, lots of wood elements on them. We have had some beach homes already that are interested. Obviously, there's a lot of exposure to
Yeah.
humidity, salt, moisture, things that are just going to kind of degrade the wood over time. And I'm really excited because we're starting to get a little bit more traction into some of the other neighborhoods that maybe don't get as much attention as like the downtown peninsula, but also have these cool, like these craftsman
Yeah.
style homes in them. Even, adjacent to those communities, relatively newer homes built about 20 or so years ago that do still have a lot of wood elements, but that wood, is not the old growth hardwood. And so it's already starting to see some issues. So excited to be able to kind of help those neighbors out as well, because of course, if you're buying a newer home, in a lot of cases, people like to buy newer homes rather than a historic home because they think it's going to be less maintenance. And in some areas, it will be. But Charleston, newer wood, that's not necessarily the case. I think a lot of homeowners are finding out. And so I'm really excited to be able to provide a cost-effective solution for those homeowners as well, where this is maybe a shock to them that they're already dealing with wood rot issues on their homes. So I think particularly our area of town, West Ashley, Park
Mhm.
Circle, our beach communities, those are going to be great areas, I think, for us to kind of do some more great
Yeah.
work as well.
Well, one of the things I noticed about you guys in our initial conversations, you were very familiar with your city. You know it well, and I think that that makes a huge difference. I always somebody a long time ago before Preservan asked me, how do you be successful in home service business? And I was like, love your city, love all the little parts of your city, and understand what makes them unique, and then go provide value to those communities. So I think you guys really are doing a phenomenal job at that. I guess, Casey, I'm going to let you answer this one first, but I'm also interested in Emily's thoughts on this. And you guys have already said it. You've said the word neighbor a few different times. I'm going to ask this specifically. Here at Preservan, we don't have customers, we have neighbors. Casey, what does that mean to you?
Gosh, what a great question. I think it kind of goes back to something Emily was saying when she was talking about consultative selling is just, it's a sort of state of mind of like, we're not in this to be transactional. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the word customer, but it does just conjure up like, there's a transactional nature to it. Like I give you this service, you give me my money, and then, I probably won't see you again. I'm on to the next. I got a pipeline full of customers coming in behind you. And I think the way we try to interact with our neighbors is like you would neighbors, right? Like, and in much the same way Emily was talking about, like we get called out to a neighbor's home and we're like, we could put a square peg in a round hole and say like, yes, I'll figure out a way to put epoxy onto this problem. But if we look at this from a standpoint of like, what does this particular problem set need? And it may just need a referral out to somebody we know who would do that, the kind of work that they need better. And I think that's the way you would react with an actual neighbor,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is not to try to like shoehorn what you need into a transactional context. Just like try to get the right person. And if it's us, great. And most of the time it will be us. So I think that just having that cast of mind of like people that we come in contact with, like it's a commercial relationship, yes, but what we're trying to do is just solve problems for them.
Yeah. Emily?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of these people, they are directly our neighbors. Like we're
Right.
already, working with true in our neighborhood neighbors. And having been in the city for a while in various phases of life, college, married, no kids, now with kids, we're all over the place and we've met a lot of people. And so, there's already been, I was on an assessment Monday. It was my last one of the evening. And I was kind of, it'd been a long day. And I showed up to this house and started speaking with this really kind woman. And the more we're talking, I'm like, I'm sorry. I think we met back in 2018. Ran another like sustainability program that I was touring and interested in at the time, pre-kids. And so then we were chatting, catching up and talking about, because of the age of my kids versus her, school, local school districts. And it just is like, you don't know. And then I actually drove past that same woman this morning, leaving a job site in another area of town. But because of where she works, she's right over, so it just is like, this is our community. We are in service to these people that go beyond the relationship that we have in this business to customer sort of vein. It is very ingrained in the fabric of what we're doing on our personal time and how we are living our lives here. I have some people-pleasing tendencies for sure, but it is, which I think is great. Like right now, I'm, kind of having those at night thoughts of like, oh my gosh, I hope this is, just running through the because I already want it to be great, but I especially, want to do right by all of the people that are, again, here in our community and that I feel connected to beyond just this relationship.
Yeah. Well, it definitely shows, and that you guys really, I mean, once again, going back to those early calls that we had, that was another thing, like that whole neighbor thing. It was like, these people get it. Like, I'm not having to talk them into what it means to treat somebody like a neighbor and then run a business as if everybody you interact with is your neighbor. You guys got that from the very beginning. So it's always exciting to work with people who completely get it. And speaking of your neighbors, I am just curious, you guys finished training, I think 2 weeks ago, right? We finished training. And then, so you've kind of been there in the community, actively kind of going on quotes and assessments and looking at stuff. what has been the reception so far of your community, of your neighbors? And I'd like you to speak to one, like, from like a digital perception, like what does that look like? And then from an actual, like, on the ground meeting people on the front porch, what has that been like?
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody that's come to us so far has found us through Facebook or Instagram, essentially, at this point. And there have all said to me, "Oh my gosh, I have been staring at this issue and I haven't wanted to do a full replacement. I knew there was not a need to totally rip something out, or everybody that I've called about this one issue on, the bottom rail of my window, they just want to replace the whole window. Surely there's a way to just fix like this aspect." And so I've honestly shown up and the neighbors seem to already like they get it. Like they have been looking for there's got to be something that can just address this piece, this thing. And so when we've come across their feed as they're
Hmm.
scrolling, it's been a really immediate,
Yeah.
for fill out contact. And so when I've shown up, I mean, even if Bondo is kind of the first, like, so it's like a Bondo thing, or like, so that's a great like starting point to think about, like, filling the void. But here's actually what our product
Yeah.
does, and let me show you, like, on something that's cured, how ours feels different from the way Bondo or wood filler, would ultimately feel. And so the customer education point has really been more on the product itself.
Hmm.
The application for it, I think they're like, yeah, great, makes sense, love that. And they've gotten replacement quotes for, a whole door frame, door window package, because that's the only thing that people are, when they've got this issue of rot on, like a top part of the frame, that's what everyone's
Hmm.
trying to do. And so being able to, explain how we're going to do it, I think for the most part, probably because here in Charleston, everybody's familiar with rot. Everybody knows what the deal is. They'd all rather have something to repair as opposed to continually
Yeah.
feeling like they have to replace something. So I think we're fortunate in that aspect, that the repair mentality seems to be pretty strong here already. And then it's been more just an education of our methodology and how our product specifically is going to look, feel, work differently from potential what they thought were temporary
Yeah.
repair solutions previously. That this is not we're not doing another temporary repair. This one should last for the length of the rest of the wood element. We're going to guarantee it for 10 years, but this should be a more permanent fix for you. So I think we've been very fortunate in that regard. And, everybody has said, like, "Oh my gosh, well, you guys are gonna do so well here. And my son
How
is a realtor downtown.
yeah.
Let me connect you with him. So everybody is like,
So the community's been very, not only have they responded well to the digital aspect, but
yeah,
then when you bring it to that front porch, then there's this organic element that starts to happen as people's light bulbs go off and they go like, "Oh no, let me help you out here." We
yeah.
really embracing the service.
I think in general, it's almost like we're in some instances kind of having to like pull some people back. Like I can't like epoxying this whole thing isn't the move, right?
Right.
Let's see again that education of like here, here, and here are where it's most appropriate, but for this over here, because I think people are very willing to have a service that is repair focused.
I
That's
think
great.
we've gotten this interesting reaction in a couple places, be it from neighbors that are actually like engaging us for our services, or just, people in our lives. They're like, "How are you the first? Like, how is somebody not already doing it?" You know what I mean? It's just sort of like, this just seems so obvious for here. How is somebody not already doing this? And so that's a kind of fun. And it might be worth sharing too that like Emily has done a fantastic job of like even before we went to training, so we weren't even launched. She reached out to the Preservation Society. We have two historic preservation organizations in Charleston that protect our historic downtown. They kind of like are friendly collaborators, sometimes competitors kind of thing. So, but she reached out to the one well in advance, and we like took a woman out for coffee there, and then Emily was just there the other day doing like a kind of quasi sort of networking education thing. She brought a molding board,
Mhm.
and they're just like stoked we're here because because they're preservationists. So they are fully up to speed on what we do because they've read all the national parks papers and stuff.
Right.
And so they were that in that instantly got it thing. And they're like, they couldn't be happier we're here because from their point of view, it's like, yeah, we want to repair every single time we can. And so
Yeah. Uh, I love that. I think that obviously I think that the brand, fits that and the service fits that. But it is great when you can pair up a community that already embraces the principles,
Nice.
combined with local owners who embrace the principles. That's when you can get some really exciting stuff to happen. This has been really fun, and of course, all of our conversations have been really fun. It's been really awesome to get to meet and know you guys. I'm gonna ask one last question, kind of big picture question. You guys decide who the big picture answer person is going to be, but outside of it being financially successful, because obviously that's always what you want with a business. You want to be financially successful. Casey, you talked about the high mission, high money. When you look out ahead 5 years from now, how will you know that this worked and you made an impact in your personal lives and in your local community?
I'll speak from my standpoint to have it be something where we can be good employers in our community, good employers in a trade. I think because of the preservation culture here, there's a lot of great education opportunities for those that want to apprentice and learn. And we are treating this like a trade, like,
Hmm.
as a craftsperson. And so we want to pay that way. We want our employees to feel that way and to be able to kind of grow out a team of technicians that can also kind of specialize in different skill sets and different offerings within what we do so that we can have a more specialized focus depending on the areas of our communities that we're serving and be able to maintain, quick, affordable repairs and timelines to our customers. So I think to have a team of technicians with that sort of discipline and focus would be great. And where, I am able to kind of hybridize my role where I'm still able to go out and interact with neighbors and do assessments, but also be able to be an on-site resource at times for
Hmm.
technicians. So to kind of have flexibility in my role too, because I love every aspect of it. I want to be able to do some of the work. I want to be able to sell some of the work. So to be in a position where I can do that and have leadership opportunities for these technicians that, have been with us for a while to kind of step up and take on additional responsibility would be great, because ultimately that'll mean I have more flexibility with my kids and being able to be a part of all the evening things and pick up
Yeah,
and have that integration where they get to see us building something cool and that's impactful, but that it's not also taking away from them at the
that's
same time.
right.
So
That's right.
that's kind of my dream spot we'd be at in 5
Yeah.
years.
yeah, I mean, a couple things come to mind for me, Ty. I mean, we alluded to it earlier, but just to kind of underscore this for the potential prospective franchisees that are, maybe going to watch this, I want to leave my day job. I'll just be really straightforward about that. And when I think about like, ways we'll know we've made it, and, I don't mean these are not things that I'm tied to specifically, but just kind of sort of images in my mind. So like I just went to the Preservation Society I mentioned. I just went to their yearly award ceremony a few weeks back where they award houses for different categories and stuff like new build and restoration and stuff like that. I'd love for Preservin to be a title sponsor of that event. You know what I mean? Like I think that, apart from the narrow marketing interest, we can be in a position to like shell out that kind of cash for that sort of
Hmm.
thing and, court the high society folk that come to
Yeah.
those things like that. I think that'd be a litmus test for like, we're on our way. And then I just kind of, this is a little bit squishier, but just like, I kind of think it would be awesome if we're just like, known in the community as like, oh yeah, the Preserving guys. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
we have this moving company here in town called College Hunks Moving Junk, and they have these orange trucks, and like everybody knows who they are. Just one, they have really good branding, right? Like so it's some just clever, but it just kind of sticks in people's mind. You know what I mean? Is like that sort of the branding is really well known, and like as far as I know, they do good service. I've never engaged with them, but like if Preservan could occupy that sort of like that that visual cultural fixture in Charleston, where we've just touched a lot of our neighbors, and they're like, oh yeah, the Preservan guys are great. That would be a really cool point to get to.
Yeah. Well, I believe that there is a day, not only that you're able to sponsor the award, but that you're going to have worked on one of the properties that is getting the award.
Yeah.
That's going to be really cool when you're like, so-and-so, this project is winning an award, and we fixed that window or we fixed that column. That's going to be the really cool moment. I think you guys are going to find it sooner rather than later. This has been a blast. It is super exciting to work with you guys. Casey, Emily, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Ty.
Thank you, Ty.
So there you have it. Casey and Emily Long, proud owners of Preservan Charleston. If you live in Charleston or the surrounding areas and you think you may have some wood decay or wood rot on your house, I want to encourage you to go to preservan.com, fill out a form so that we can get you connected with them so we can get that fixed. And if you've listened to this video and you've watched this and you've thought to yourself, you know what, my area needs a Preservan and I want to be the person to open it up, I want you to go to gopreservan.com and fill out the form and get connected with us so we can begin the conversation of what it looks like to become a Preservan franchise owner. And last, I want to get connected with you personally. So do me a favor and go to LinkedIn, search Ty McBride. You'll find me there. Let's get connected and continue the conversation on LinkedIn. And I'll talk to everybody later.